Development Program. The topic for today's FDP is, does Indian secularism have a future? The resource person for today's FDP is Assistant Professor Ms. Rachna Thakur. Before we move ahead, let us close our eyes for a short prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for your guidance. Help me know when to stop and listen to your direction. Your ways are perfect. Lord, thank you for offering gentle grace. In Jesus' name, amen. Can you open your eyes now? Our chief guest of observer needs no introduction. Ma'am is professor at Patna University and president of PUCL Patna. She was awarded PhD degree on the thesis on ancient Indian history. Ma'am is an excellent teacher with varied area of interest. She is a member of several government bodies and several societies and civil society organizations, including and West Society, PUCL Bihar, FPTR Bangalore, etc. She has co-authored one book and edited along books and magazines, mostly on education and environment. With this, may I now request our principal to address the gathering.
Friends, I'm happy that we have this relevant topic today. Does socialism have a future? So secularism, does secularism have a future? And we have a very important person of our town, Professor Basic Narayan, to a witness and observer. And this is one of the questions we are grappling with in our country. Therefore, we have a talk, the video talk, which is the basis of the content of our presentation today. And as we know, these faculty development programs are meant for widening our horizon of knowledge and also to update ourselves with what is happening around us. I'm sure we build up our confidence and become competent professors and educators. Welcome and over to you. All the best.
Very warm good afternoon. Even all present here. Daisy ma'am, I just want to know whether I am audible.
Rachna ma'am, you are audible.
Thank you, Mukesh sir. And I hope that I am audible at the time also. Okay. Thank you so much. I would like to begin with the topic, does Indian secularism have a future? So I'll start with my presentation. Basically, the topic is based on a lecture which was organized by Center for the Study of Society and Secularism, and the lecture was given by Professor Rajiv. Introduction to the topic. Professor Rajiv Bhargava told about that secularism is viewed purely as a device for the protection of minority rights, under them being seen equally important as fighting caste and gender narratives. There is a failure to properly recognize that secularism exists as much to fight interreligious as intra-religious domination. He is a political theorist and a director and founder of the Institute of Indian Thought Center for the Study of Developing Societies. He was delivering the prestigious 16th Dr. Asghar Ali Engineer Memorial Lecture over Zoom. This lecture was being chaired by Professor Faizan Mustafa and organized by the Center for Study of Society and Secularism on 25th September 2020. Introduction of the speaker. Professor Rajiv Bhargava is currently the director at Bharati Institute of Indian Thoughts, Center for Study of Developing Societies. Prior to that, he was the director at CSDS from 2007 to 2014. He has also been a professor at the Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi from 1980 to 2005. And between 2001 and 2005 was head Department of Political Science, University of Delhi. He did his BA in Economics from University of Delhi and MPhil and DPhil from Oxford University. Bhargava's publications are Individualism in Social Science, What is Political Theory and Why Do We Need It? The Promise of India's Secular Democracy. His edited works are Secularism and its Critics, Politics and Ethics of Indian Constitution. Now, I would like to begin with Indian concept of secularism and a secular state. When we talk about a secular state or a secularism, the very first thing which comes in the mind is the Sarva Dharma Samvad or Sarva Dharma Samabhav, equal regards for all faiths and creed. For this, I would like to take a very light example of our college that we have seen that we have a prayer room where we follow the Sarva Dharma Samabhav. We even try to inculcate this value among our students. Our mentors, the prayer beat is being given to each mentoring group, and our students try to recite the prayer in the different religions which they follow. Ekam Brahma Viprabahuda Vadanti. God is one. Wise men call him by different names. Yes. All the holy books, whether it is Quran or Guru Granth or Bible or Bhagavad Gita, we all follow the different religions. Muslim calls by the name of Allah. Sikhism calls it by the name of Guru Nanak. Christian call it by the name of Jesus. Why have taken the Hindus practice? Because in Hindu religion, we call it Chausif Karor Devi Devta, where we have our goddess and God calling it a different name. But at the end, we would like to see in all the religions, God is one. So, God is one, wise men call it by the different names. Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, has explained the meaning of secular in India as it means while religion is completely free, the state, including in its wide hold various religions and cultures, gives protections and opportunities to all and thus bring about an atmosphere of tolerance and cooperation. Talking about the Constitution. Constitution was framed in 1950, but secularism was not included in the 1950. It was included in the 42nd Amendment done in the year 1976. Now, moving ahead, I would now like to focus on the Indian Constitution end the secularism. As we all know, that India has 29 different states. In all these different 29 states, in each and every corner of India, a people of different religions are residing. No state has put any part that this particular religion people will not be so residing in the state. No. So the state will not identify itself with or to be controlled by any religion. If we come to the next, that if all the state guarantees and gives the right that each and every individual is free to follow their religion, there is no condition put up by the state that a particular person will not follow any kind of a religion or they are being forced that not to follow this religion only. There is no discrimination. Yes. In each and every state, you can see that all the festivals are being celebrated with the equal, we can say, we celebrate Ramadan, we celebrate Eid, we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate the Puja. There are 10 numbers of the festivals. I'm sorry. There are n number of the festivals and occasions which are being celebrated by all the peoples, all the citizens of India. But if we see, no bar has been put by the state that a particular festival will not be celebrated. The right of every citizen, subject to any general condition, to enter any offices under the state and religious tolerance from the heart and soul of secularism, as envisaged by the Constitution. It secures the condition of creating a fraternity of Indian people which assure both the dignity of individual and the unity of nation. Moving ahead with the topic, that is being does Indian secularism have future? So I would like to share the views of Professor Rajan on this topic. He basically focused about the external causes and the internal flaws in the Indian secularism, which is in a state of a crisis. Next, he talked about the Gandhian philosophy of secularism and Ambedkar philosophy of secularism, starting with the external flaws. He has talked about the right-wing populism, the rise of right-wing populism. What is right-wing populism? It's basically also known as the national populism. It is a political ideology which combines right-wing politics and populist expressions and the themes. Expression consists of anti-racist sentiments, opposition to establishment and esteem to the common people. Further, it is also explained prior failure address rising economic inequalities thanks to the new rampant capitalism and further back in time to the global vacuum created by the collapse of the Soviet Union. And even further back to the resurgence of the militant religions, particularly radicalized political Islams, have been some of the external political, economic, and social causes. About the internal flow of secularism. In this, he has mentioned about the people who face to distinguish between the communicative from the communalism and the criticism of religion coming from such an individual and citizen who do not themselves have the proper knowledge of the religion. And this is the major reason and the serious issue people who does not understand the distinctive feature of the Indian secularism. Next, he has talked about the Gandhian philosophy of secularism, where Gandhi says, I do not expect India of my dreams to develop one religion that is to be wholly Hindu, that is to be wholly Christian or wholly Muslim. But I want it to be wholly tolerant with its religious working side by side with one another. Yes, and we are living in that dream of Mahatma Gandhi, and I can take a live example of this hall. In this hall, we all are sitting, those who are belonging to the different religions. Some are Muslim, some are Christian, some are Hindu, and some are following the Sikhism or the Jainism. So this is the best example which I can take to explain this philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. Next, he has said that I swear by my religion, I will die for it, but it is my personal affair. The state has nothing to do with it. The state would look after your secular welfare, health, communications, foreign relations, currency, and so on. But not your or my religion. That is everybody's personal concern. Talking about Dr. B. Ramji Ambedkar, who is also known as the architect of the Indian Constitution. He has given a philosophy on the secularism that it does not mean that we can abolish the religion. It does not take into consideration the religious sentiments of the people, or that the secular state means is that this parliament shall not be capable to impose any particular religion upon the people. This was the views which was been given by Professor Rajiv Bhargava. I would like to conclude the views of Professor Rajiv Bhargava, how we can bring back the secularism. Professor Bhargava forgotten that unless we take corrective conceptual measures, the future of socialism, secularism will remain uncertain, even if there is improvement in the social, economic, political condition conducive to its growth. This was about the Professor Bhargava's views on the topic, on the lecture which he has delivered. Now, I would like to present some of my views on this topic. My views on this topic is basically Indian secularism, where we talk about communalism, communitarism, majority and minority, Hindu and Muslim. We are some or the other way not focusing on some of the other issues also. Where, before moving on this particular 3 points, I would like to know from the House that what is your viewpoint on this? I would like to know from the House, any one of you can just tell your viewpoint on this topic. Yes, sir.
I think man should basically at least give us some light about the difference between modernist. So, the difference between communalism and communitarianism, you can just share a little bit of that.
I was saying and expressing this of what we can observe because before moving on to my views on this topic, why I have asked the House to present their views. Okay, a question has been come, I will appreciate the question and I will try to read the question. When we talk about the community, when we talk about the communalism, it's basically the 2 different aspects. Some of the other are similar to each other. Some of the other, they are similar to each other, and that is the reason we are failing to differentiate between these 2 terms. That is the reason we are not able to differentiate the community from the communalism, and there is a lacking which is coming, which I will take up in my last one. Anybody else, or should I move ahead? Okay, thank you so much. Moving ahead with the equity in the gender, the very first point which I have taken up for this is that in secularism, we have discussed that it gives rise to an individual to follow his own religion, but in the same way, equity in a gender is also important. Gender equity works to connect the historical norms that has left women behind. For example, I just give a small example, that is the societal restrictions on women. Some of the areas we have seen, or most of the states we have seen, that still the people have the belief that women are just built for working at home. They are not being allowed to go outside and they are not being allowed to work. They are not being termed as an earning member of the family. But this thinking is needed to be changed. Next is the party politics. Some of the political parties in India are organized on the communal lines, and these parties represent the interests of a particular region or a particular group. Some of the religion parties even desire to struggle for a separate independent state. Now, moving on to the last one, but it is the most important one where I would like to give 2 examples. That is the word obscurantism, which synonyms or means the deception. One of the obstacles is the Indian secularism. In all the Indian religion, there is an obscurantism element. which creates obstacle in the way of evolution of human and social order. It is because of these people with importance, and it is like for more stress, it is because the people give more importance to the custom and the tradition rather than the reason. I Indian people, respective of their religion, see many of the things in their traditions and their custom. And it is a great further to the secularism. I would like to quote two examples which I have taken. A very nice example of today, as we all are aware, that today is a very big party Purnima, where people believe that they have to go to the river, take a bath. But as we are aware of the pandemic situation, government has even put the restrictions on people that please don't go near to the river, please don't go there in a quantity and don't go for bath. But still, we believe in our custom and tradition. We are not bothered about the reason. And this is one of the obstacles which is some or the other way hindering the growth of the secularism. Next example, which I would like to put for this obstacle, is that in the early days, if you remember, our grandparents used to tell us, "Ishanti have we tried to understand the reason behind that? We have taken it interpreted in a form of a custom and a tradition. Earlier, as the sunset used to be, at that time there was a lack of electricity in the areas. There was no proper electricity. That was one of the major reasons that in the evening, where there is no electricity in your house and you're rooming, you don't know what the vegetables are there on the floor. You miss it. If you're cutting your meals at the night times, you don't have any lights, you can hurt yourself. This was the basic reason. But we have done, we have inculcated in ourselves that it is a custom and a tradition we have to follow. So there are so many examples. You people might be having that examples with you. So some of the other way, this is an obscurantism to the secularism. Thank you so much. I would like to take the questions for the discussion. The very first question is open to the House. Why and how secularism has done in the crisis? Why and how secularism has done in the crisis? Yes,
To me, religion as a practice of life was in practice when we were not in a constitutional era. In those days, religion was our way of life. We were guided by different principles of religion, we were guided by different customs, and we followed religion for that. But once you are in a constitutional framework, the constitution becomes the guiding principles guide all the actions. Now, if you supersede that and you want to practice it in your life according to that, that creates the biggest obstacle. Secondly, religion is something that you practice for yourself. Once it comes on the street, it becomes communalism. When you are practicing in your home, this is religion. That is it.
Anyone else would like to express his or her view on this first question? Yes, right, sir.
How and why these questions will ask us to think about. Now, the why it has run through the process is because the vast majority of us who believe in liberal ideas, who are aware of our own and others' dignity in life, we are the ones who tend to remain silent. The question is how a vocal minority have usurped the public space, and that is how what happens. This situation is there. When we are liberal, we tend to say everybody's viewpoint is acceptable. Let us discuss, let us debate. But when you have a particular aggressive minority viewpoint, which is aggressively put forward, so what happens? The space for that discussion must shrunk. And that is why we, the secularism as an idea, has run into the crisis.
Yes, one thing.
And the question says that why and how secularism has run into deep crisis. So the point is that here we have accepted that the secularism is in deep crisis. First, we need to accept that it is in that deep crisis. And there are various factors, I think, various reasons behind why secularism is in deep crisis. And one of the major factors, two factors I believe that one is the political factor, and second, the role of the media. As we all know, what crisis the media is facing right now. I've seen a live debate in a news channel where an anchor was saying in a live debate that I am not secular. And 3 to 4 times he repeated that I am not secular. And what can we expect from that? So there are various factors. Two, I believe that political factor is regarding the role of media. In response to first question, then, what I think that why is secularism has run into deep crisis? I think after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, there is an election in Hyderabad, and I was just listening the lectures of the people of BJP. Sorry, I think take the name of that party. They were saying that they were just doing the campaigning, and they were saying that we this time we are going to turn the Hyderabad into the Agwar, and there will be no scope for Muslims. It was mentioned in their speech. And of course, the major factor behind is the illiteracy. People are not literate. People do not understand the constitution. They have not read at all the constitution, what is written there. Most of the people are taking undue advantage of this. That is why we think that secularism has no existence today. And the major factor is a political and just Farhan sir said media. Media has just become, a puppet of some political parties. What political parties want to picturize the things, they're just doing all those things. They're just forgetting all the media ethics. That is why I was saying.
Yes, sir. The questions are there. I request the secretary that please come over here and take the audience answers.
Excuse me, Rachna ma'am, may I say something?
Yes, okay, sir.
Okay. Actually, ma'am, I have raised my hand. I think you have not seen. The first question is why and how secularism has run into deep crisis. So, according to my opinion, those people who are fighting in the name of religion, they don't understand their religion itself. If I talk about my own religion, that means Hindu or Hinduism, is there any word like Hindu or Hinduism in our books like Gita and Ramayana? I didn't come across these words. And in our books, it has been mentioned that everybody is equal. There should not be any discrimination on the basis of caste, religion, or anything else. So, if we could understand our religion, then definitely we become a better people, a better person, and secularism will not be any issue. Thank you, ma'am.
Just I was reading this, listening to the talk. One question comes to my mind. So one question comes to my mind, which is the dichotomy between the Indian Parliament and the Supreme Court of India. In that sense, recently I heard the Swami brought a bill. Christian is suffering from schizophrenia. He did get that stop. This is what Blanket did. Seeing that light, I don't think there is a similarity with what we say according to the bodies of the Samvidhan and what the Supreme Court judgment does in the Supreme Court of India. Second is, I don't see there is a harmony between the interstates. I don't think any of the parts, any of the law, any of the law of any state has been not dedicated when the state is doing some illegal works, illegal things, or doing illegal acts, going against Article 356 of our amendment that was done in 1976. This is the first.
A very simple thing I will say. Common sense is not so common. If someone is trying to mislead us, we should have that kind of common sense. What is secularism? First, we have to improve religion. We are not understanding the basic concept of whatever the religion. First thing, we have to understand the concept. First, we have to improve from ourselves. Then this problem, the question will be shown us, the first problem will be solved. That's it. Thank you.
I will just highlight why not now. Why the first reason is lack of education. Among the educated people, there is awareness of being secular or understanding, but the large number of people in the villages, remote areas, to see who practice what religion. Accordingly, these are awarenesses better. So first is lack of education, lack of awareness. The second point will be the lack of awareness of the religious and spiritual. People are majority are religious but not spiritual. And that is the I understand. And third, others have also mentioned about the political issues. So politicians who dominate the awareness or forget other things. And on the basis of religion, that voting system is done, all these things are there. This I understand. And also the number game. All over India, you see the number game plays a very big role in all this awareness. How it will be done.
Thank you so much for the answer.
I think just like we don't understand the spirit of democracy, and we don't understand the spirit of secularism, the fall lies.
We must advance and
Good afternoon, Professor Narayan. Good afternoon. I look at this from a very different perspective. I believe that we have stopped dialoguing in our community. That's the basic problem. We have forgotten sitting together. We have forgotten the culture which used to be 20 years back or couple of years back, decades back, like Addas. Addas, the concept of Addas and literally get together, have become the stories of the past. These are the basic things that we need to talk about. Then when you talk about secularism or democracy, we believe in democracy. We always try to tell people that we need to cast our votes smartly. But what the reality is that we are guided by small benefits. Next is why is this secularism suffering? Secularism across the world, if I'm not mistaken, across the world has become a puppet. And it has become a failed idea which we are talking today. Now, the only thing that we need to do is how to make this secularism green. It is struggling to green. We need to think about this and how we can make it, make it live. That's it, I think. Thank you.
So to the next question, I will be very even for the news because we have to work on time.
Can I say one more?
So there's one more question.
Just one more thing. It's a grossly mistaken, perception. There is no Hindu, and everyone is Hindu under the sky. Now, why do I say this? If you belong to this land, or Hindu or Hindu, you are Hindu. There is no religion as such. I am not a Hindu. I am a Sanatani. Why am I Hindu? I am Hindu because I believe in this land. Because I love this land for him, and from him I am a Hindu. Everyone is Hindu. Now I am a Sanatani. I am a Hindu. That's the point. Everyone is Hindu because we belong to the land, a land called Hindustan, and Hindustan is a bunch of Indus civilization. From Sindh it became Hind, and from Hind it became Hindu. I don't know why Mr. Gandhi, even Gandhi was wrong when he said Hinduism. There's nothing like Hinduism. Hinduism is just a way of life. If you are really a Hindu, you are Sanatani. We are all Sanatani here. But if we really love to carry this identity, so-called identity, we are Sanatani. That's it. Yeah. See, there are people here under this roof. They have faith in Islam. That's religion. We have faith in that Sanatan Dharma. That's Islam. It's a dharma. But when you talk about Hindus as a religion, it's a gross idea. Hindu is just a term taken from Hind, which is actually a bunch of Sindh. We are people of Indus Valley civilization, and that's why we are all Hindu in India.
So, we will take the last question. As academicians, how can we help India to save its secularism?
Two things. The first one, we stop being hypocrites. What we say, we don't practice. In our classroom, on the stage, we say something else. In the real life, we practice completely opposite. Absolutely. And this is not something theoretical. Practically, this is happening. Secondly, we have to create the narrative of the livelihood, the life. Okay, the basic needs of life. You have to create that narrative, concentrate the focus on that. I mean, why does the system steal you? Because you are ready to be misled. You're not talking about education, you're not talking about healthcare, you're not talking about employment. And you are talking about something that is immaterially alive. That is the narrative that will be created. So we have to take it. Thank you. The second, about the second question, is very simple. Now we are talking about secularism and extremism. Why not think otherwise? There is secularism.
Sushi. Father, please unmute your mic. Father Sushi, please unmute your mic.
Am I audible?
Yes, Father, you're audible.
Okay, very good afternoon to each and every one of you. Nice to hear a very beautiful topic, no doubt about it. What I have to share is, am I audible?
Yes, Father, you're audible and clear.
I remember of Father Tony D'Souza, a Society of Jesus from Bombay, who had given us the faculty development program. If you spoke
अच्छा क्या मेरा ठीक है पेमेंट हो जाएगा 10 दिन में अगर पेमेंट 10 दिन
about
में आ
this
जाएगा तो चल
religious
जाएगा
equality,
बोल रहे थे कि वो टिपा
he
का क्या
talked about religion divides us, but the spirituality unites us.
अच्छा ठीक है वेरी गुड
He talked
अच्छा वो
about
इन
the
अकाउंट नहीं पहुंचेगा स्टूडियो
spirituality unites
वो तो
all
एक
the
हफ्ते से अब बोल रहे कल
to
पहुंच
point
जाएगा कल
out
पहुंच
there
जाएगा
is God and we are
कल
all beings
कल
of
पहुंचवा
human.
दीजिए ना हम भी उसको बनने के लिए दे
Now,
देंगे ना
why this division comes
ठीक
is the
ठीक है
ego factor. My religion is better than your religion, and
पुराना
there are
हमको
3
चाहिए
points there that to
चालीस
stay
और नया वाला 30
my religion, to
बस
strengthen
इतना
my
में हो जाएगा मेरा
religion,
काम
and to protect my religion. And all other things are created to strengthen or to make my religion superior than the other. It's the game of the ego, nothing else. So this is what I wanted to put forth.
Thank you, Father. Right, sir? And then Father after.
In answer to the second question, I would like to pick up from what our speaker has said. And I just have one line. The day that St. Xavier's College will admit transgender students, I will say we have at least put into practice what we have been preaching. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Father?
To say complete step that we have in our constitution to be under. That is the liberty of expression, belief, faith, and worship. So I think every activities day we can decide this at the end of the activities, or we can start the activities deciding this. So one step. The second step we can write to the government of Bihar and India, especially the education department, that area in our syllabus or in the schools, this will be promoted. So that one thing is we become and we are aware of the Indian constitution rights and other elements and articles. The second thing, we can unite, because also become the fraternity and unity of India. Thereby, we can unite the whole nation. Because secularism and other things will debate, and then no debate will be successful on the base of religion. No debate, not about debate. The only thing we need to be reconciled with one another, with understanding with the other ones, outer fraternity, brothers and sisters, no matter what they practice and do. This way will be a one discussion. This is my suggestion.
Thank you, Father. For answer?
अब एक ओटीपी आया है
One thing I want to say, in order to answer question number 2, Few friends say that they feel
पुराना
factors and that's why I was saying this nice. But I totally disagree. I have met so many people with degree and intellectuals, but their minds are full of hatred against certain religion. So first I need to understand this point. If I am not wrong, we will compare with the people living in rural area with the people living in urban area. They are far more secular. People who are living in rural area. So we cannot say that liberty is one of the factors.
नहीं
And
नहीं
here one thing
ये
we have
नवंबर
been following.
दिसंबर का डेट लेके
Have
काटेंगे
been following
ये
interreligious
अक्टूबर का
movement
रहेगा
according to our various programs. But what I believe that we need to practice what we preach. We will ask few people, among us, for example, some other intellectuals, we will ask them, do you watch news channel? They will say, no, we don't watch news channel because we are hatred in the time of newspapers. We use social media. No, we don't use social media because वहाँ पर बहुत गलत होता है हिंदू मुस्लिम. What I want to point out that in our work by not watching news channel, not using social media or we need to do something. We need to voice. If something is wrong, we need to speak. What is bad, not in a bad people, but then good people do not say anything. We have to respect that. Thank you.
Thank you. With this, we end the discussion session. Thank you, Rachna, for presenting this in such a beautiful manner. So we can now request our chief observer, Professor Ruby Haran, his thoughts. Ma'am, please express your thoughts and views. Please unmute your mic, ma'am. Ma'am, your mic is still muted. Ma'am, can you please unmute your mic?
Now it's clear, ma'am. Again, ma'am.
Ma'am, you have unmuted your mic, ma'am.
Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, let me thank you for including me in this session and enabling me to listen to a whole lot of my friends regarding the concept of secularism. The person who was presenting her paper on secularism did it very well. It was pointed and briefly stated, and yet the views that she presented were very convincing. There are one or two things that I would just like to suggest is be careful when you use the word the, because in quite a few sentences, someone noted down the word the or the article is irrelevant. For example, where you said by the different names. Here, this is not suited. Be very careful when you use the word the or the article. You could have stated by different names. And another sentence, there were quite a few, but let me just mention just two to give you an indication or a hint. You're very good, but this is just to enhance your speaking power. For example, and the secularism. It should have been and secularism. So when you use a, and, the, then please be a bit more careful of how you're using it in your sentence. Otherwise, sometimes the modulations that were present, your voice came across very well, it came across very firmly, but there could have been better modulation of what you said. For example, sometimes you ignored the comma that you've used, or where you have used the full stop. So please be careful when you are speaking publicly and in a formal situation like this. This is an art or a habit or a skill which you gradually develop as you go on speaking. So this was just to give you some suggestions or some tips of how you can be a better narrator, a better speaker. Now, coming to the concept of secularism, you have presented your ideas very well. Maybe I can add 1 or 2 points to what you all have all mentioned, including the main speaker and those who put in their views. You see, when the Constitution Assembly was formed in 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad presided over it. And he did an excellent job. Later, a drafting committee was constituted, which was chaired by Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar. And Ambedkar had an arduous job of putting together various views which came from the members of the Constituent Assembly and then present it cogently, suited to our culture and tradition, and prepare the Constitution. It is one of the longest documents that we have. All across the world, we have constitutions. Some have even unwritten constitutions. But so far as the written constitutions are concerned, the Indian Constitution is one of the lengthiest. So initially, the first section that we discuss before we go on to the Constitution is the preamble. I think in the speech, the preamble should have been mentioned, because the preamble sets the tone of the Constitution. There was a huge debate as to whether the preamble was a part of the Constitution or whether the preamble was distinct from the Constitution. The framers of the Constitution believed that whenever there was a controversy so far as interpreting the Constitution or the different chapters of the Constitution, the articles of the Constitution was concerned, then you can refer back and go back to the preamble. But later on, the Supreme Court rules that the preamble is very much a part of the Constitution. So while referring to Rajiv Bhargav, who is one of the most well-read person, so far as secularism is concerned, the concept of secularism is concerned, Rajiv also starts with, in his various articles, the preamble. You see, the first 3 words of the preamble says, "We the people." There can be nothing more secular than this. So we, the people, have given to ourselves a constitution. Nobody is given it to us. There is no god or a goddess. There has not been any divine intervention in preparing the constitution. It has been prepared by us and has been given to us. So we, the people. But there was a lot of debate in the Constituent Assembly, and there are several members in the Assembly, very honorable members, who suggested that in India religion is very important. And so when we start with the Constitution or the preamble to the Constitution, we should start by invocating or by mentioning the divine powers. Some suggested even the names of the gods. And that it is because of His grace that we have been able to frame a constitution. Then there were people from Bengal who said no. Why gods? In Bengal we believe in the goddess. So let us have the name of a goddess before we start with the preamble. Then this issue was put to vote. See how important it is. People in the Constituent Assembly voted whether a divine name, god or a goddess, should be included or not. And it is said that God lost in the election. So therefore, the Constituent Assembly, later when B.R. Ambedkar was presenting it, he said that in the voting that was done, God could not win it. So we, the people, won. The number of votes in favor of a divinity or a divine name was just about 41. And the rest did not favor the reference to any divinity. So therefore, the constitution that we have, the Indian Constitution, the preamble uses the word now, secular. So we have given to ourselves a constitution which makes India a secular country. Now this word secular, as the presenter had presented, and that was very well done, it wasn't there earlier. So when the present political system came to power in Delhi, the law minister then gave a speech in the Gandhi Maidan and said that do we really need to have the word secular or secularism in the constitution, in the preamble? Because even earlier, when the constitution was presented, the word was not there. So why continue to have it? This came in the 42nd Amendment of the Constitution in 1976, when the two words, very important words, came in to the preamble. One, socialism, and the other was secularism. This was during the period of Indira Gandhi. Socialistic and secular. It wasn't there when Dr. Ambedkar had framed the constitution and given to this country a vibrant constitution. Because then the constitution framers believed that we did not require, there was no necessity of adding the word secular in the preamble. Because India has always been a secular nation, a secular country, And there has been more or less respect for different religions. Occasionally, there have been fights also, say between the Vaishnavites or the Shaivites, and when later on between the Shias and the Sunnis. So there has been inter-religious conflicts also, but not like what we see in the West if we turn the pages of history for the Western countries. In the West, in the name of religion, terrible wars had been fought. There were wars that went on for 30 years, the 30 Years' War. And even now, Jerusalem is a place which is always in conflict. Because people believe that 3 religions originated from this particular place, Jerusalem. But India doesn't require it. So we did not have the word secular then. Secularism, as we now understand the word, has been variously interpreted by the scholars. If you look at the social scientists, influenced the French Revolution and later on the drafting of the French Constitution, or even earlier the American Constitution. The American Constitution also starts with the 3 words, we the people, just like the Indian preamble starts with we the people. So here Voltaire talked about the separation between the church and the state. This was a period of great turmoil in France. And the Bourbon dynasty sometimes challenged the church in Rome, and sometimes Rome prescribed dictats that had to be followed by the kings if they really. So the 3 philosophers, very famous philosophers of the period, one of them being Voltaire, said that the state should never be subservient to the church. The church is separate and the state shall be separate also. So France set this in motion, and later there were several descriptions or definitions that were given to the word secular. Did we have this concept in our country? You see, for the word dharma, sarva dharma, as the presenter had mentioned, dharma does not actually translate into religion. Which is the reason why somebody talked about ancient times and ancient period. We use the word dharma in several contexts. For example, we say Raj Dharma. Raj Dharma does not mean worshipping a king or who the king worshipped. That wasn't it. Raj Dharma was what we now define as political science. What is the state's, what are the state's duties? How should a king perform, a Raja perform? What are his duties, or what are the basic advantages that a king has, and that the king should use those advantages in favor of his praja or the people. So when the Indus Valley civilization was being excavated by one famous archaeologist, Walter Fairservice. Fairservice says that the word dharma and adharma. So dharma would be, according to him, and as he saw the various artifacts that came out, that the word dharma would mean the rules that need to be followed. And deviation from that would mean adharma.
सर जी इतने महीनों से मैं यही तो प्रैक्टिस कर रहा हूँ. अभी 2 महीने बाद तो डिफेंस मीट है जिसमें हमको
In the Jain religion,
डिफेंस मीट की बात कर रहा है. मैं तुझे
the two words have been used, dharma and adharma. So dharma and adharma in Jainism are the two components which are important in the non-soul category. That which does not have the soul. Unlike Buddhism, Jainism believed in soul, the Atman. So in this category, there are two words, dharma, and it's explained like this. Very interesting. Just like water is dharma for the fish. That is, the fish cannot live, the fish will die if the fish is taken out of the water body or of the water. And adharma is that state where so dharma is a state in which we are all active, and adharma is a state in which our faculties get diminished. This is what the Jain philosophy talks about. So in India, the word dharma has been variously interpreted. When the new legal system started in India, based on the Western or the English legal system, a lot of things the English took from us, especially in terms of the traditions, the Vyavhara. Vyavhar is the tradition which is part of the law, or a fundamental aspect of the law. Now, the Britishers, as all of you know, they are people of the book. They follow Christianity. And those who follow Christianity and those who follow Islam are people of the book. They have a holy book. And so in the court, before giving a testimony, people swore on the holy book by keeping his or her hand on the holy book. When it came to Indians, then there was a problem for the English judge. Because now for the Indians, which is the book which will be used in the court and will be held sacred, and people will testify by holding on to the book that they will be speaking the truth and nothing but the truth. Then they selected the text Gita as the holiest book which can be used in the court and is still being used in the court. Is that secular? If we use Gita in the court, even in the context of what somebody said, Hinduism, it is not. Because the Gita is a holy text for the Vaishnavites, not for the Shaivites, not for the Shaktas, that is, who believe in the goddess, not for the Suri sect, or for the Ganapati sect. We have 5 major sects in what we now term as Hinduism. So therefore, in India, we had this concept of secularism understood differently. I'll give a very important example because it belongs to this particular region. It's about a king, and I think all of you heard his name, Ashoka. Now, Ashok, the Mauryan ruler, had his own code, just like Hammurabi had his own code in Babylon. Now, this Ashokan code, or the Dhamma as it is referred to, the way of life, Dhamma in Pali, Dharma in Sanskrit, is known as the Ashokan Dhamma, which consists of 14 edicts. And in the edicts, Ashok insisted on what we now consider as secularism or secular. In the 7th Rock Edict, Ashoka says that no matter which religion a person professes, he is free to settle in any part of my kingdom. Why? Because there is no difference, as he understood it, between religions. And then also there were different religions. There was Brahmanism, there was Buddhism, there was Jainism, there were the Ajivikas, and there were many, many other. The Jain books take the count beyond 300 minor sects. So Ashoka says that wherever you want to reside, you're free to reside. And in the 9th Rock Edict, which is even more important, he says that just as you believe in the greatness of your own religion, understand and believe in the greatness of the religion that the other professes. If this is not being secular, then what it is? And these are the edicts which Ashoka inscribed when? In the 3rd century BC. So in India, secularism, as well placed by the constitution makers, had always existed as a norm, as a value. There have been aberrations to the norm. There have been conflicts, yes. The Brahmanical, those who believe in Brahmanism, later Hinduism, many of you mentioned that the word was not there. Absolutely correct. But in Brahmanism, the Brahmanas broke the Buddhist Sanghas, tore down the Buddhist Sanghas, as well as the Jain basadis, the Jain places of residence. So we have had violence. And violence, where the root was religion. So this concept of living together, professing different ideas, having different culture, this also comes under secularism. Believing in the language, in the culture, in the practices of the numerous communities that live in this country and make this country what it is, a beautiful country that is India. Now secular, when it comes into the constitution in 1976, again becomes a very, very debated word. What does it actually mean? Does it mean that religion is below the state? Does it mean that the state has nothing to do at all with religion? And so when Dr. Rajendra Prasad wanted to inaugurate the newly reconstructed Somnath temple, which had been destroyed a number of times, Pandit Nehru said, do not go. Do not go to inaugurate a temple, because that would give a different message. But Dr. Rajendra Prasad did go, and he did inaugurate the reconstructed temple of Somnath in Gujarat. So the word secularism, therefore, now is very debated, hotly debated, and it includes a lot of things. For example, when Father Stan Swami was arrested, what was the charge that was put against him? Father Stan, 80 plus, living in Jharkhand for so many years and working with our Adivasi friends. It was alleged that he favored the Maoists, that he was talking about terrorism, and that he should be arrested. And that he was converting the Adivasis into Christianity. And therefore the Indian state now feels that the religion itself, Hinduism, is in danger. You see, in 1946 also, the RSS had gone to the Britishers and told the Britishers that do not leave the country. Because the moment you leave the country, our position would be endangered, because the Muslims again will rule over us, or the Christians will become very dominant, and this community will suffer, the Hindus. And gradually, as they spread their own ideology, they made it, I think this should have been mentioned in the narrative, and be bold enough to mention in the narrative, that it is said by those in the government now, the policy makers, the niti makers of a government now, that the poverty that some of the families are facing at this point of time, the poverty level that's going down, it is because we have given shelter to people who do not belong to this country. So secularism leads on to another terrible debate of who is an Indian and who is not an Indian. And if we are not alert to the danger that we are going to face subsequently, maybe the very identity of this country would become endangered. People are made to believe, especially the Hindus, that jobs and employments are not there because here you have Muslims who have been given the right to marry 4 times, and for each Muslim couple there would be about, say, 15 to 20 children maybe. That is what the way they say it. And if this is the way they breed, and if this is the way the number goes up, then the Hindus will become poorer. They will lose out on their jobs. And therefore, we need to restrict this. So from 1946, where they said and pleaded to the English not to leave the country, we have, after many years, more than 70 years, come to a stage where people have started believing, those who are ruling us, that India's problem is not because our agriculture is poor, is not because we are less industrialized, but the problem lies in the fact that the other religious sects are multiplying. And therefore the opportunities that a Hindu should get, the original inhabitant should get, is gradually getting diminished. And against this very concept of secularism, which has been the strength of this country, there has been the rewriting of history. The whole education pattern, if you look at the new education policy that has come, this new education policy is trying to brainwash people into thinking differently and raise the differences between the religious communities. Yes.
We are running short of time.
Yes, so I was just finishing it. Yes. So I think this is a major topic. You placed a question what people in academics should do. I think we have a great responsibility as professors and teachers in school to tell the younger generation what secularism is all about, what this country is all about, and more importantly, how well drafted is our constitution. Just as the constitution safeguards us, we also need to safeguard our constitution, which is secular, which is socialistic, which is democratic, and which announces that this country is a republic. Thank you.
his view at this time.
No.
Dear friends, in 1955, when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru visited Bangalore for the Bangalore conference, he was asked by a journalist, "Sir, what is the biggest challenge that India is faced with since independence?" And he immediately said, "Creating a just state by using just means." And in the same breath, he added, "Creating a secular state in a religious country, especially where the religions are not based on inspired books." 65 years have gone by, and even now we are grappling with this issue of secularism. It is so because we have abandoned God and spirituality and focused on institutionalized religion. It is so because we have allowed ourselves to perceive the world on binary opposite. What do I mean binary opposite? Seeing the world as good and bad, right and wrong. And we have extended this concept to humanity, to human life, as we and they. As a result, people who have lived in harmony for centuries in villages and towns now begin to see the other as they, not we. As long as we believe that we can transform the world, not in competition with others, but in collaboration with others, secularism will hold relevance. Otherwise, it has no place. And this is the message Professor Rachana Thakur has been trying to drive home to us this afternoon. So I thank her for her painstaking effort and dealing with this complex topic. And in a special way, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to Professor A.C. Narayan for her valuable presence and her constructive feedback. Also for clarifying the concept of secularism for us further. Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable presence, for taking time off and being present here and sharing your valuable insights. We are grateful to you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Available on the WhatsApp official group and in the chat box of FDP as well. The link is open for 20 minutes. As the program draws to its end, I would like to thank Professor D.T. Narayan for feedback and thoughts. I would also like to thank Father Principal and Father Vice Principal for sharing their views and faculty members for wonderful insights. Last but not the least, special thanks to Dean Academics C.S. Dr. Manamai Bagrai, Assistant Professor Mr. Mukesh Kumar, Assistant Professor and Manager Mr. Piyush Sharma, Mr. Alexander Nakar for technical support and some means which is arranged for our program. So thank you all for joining in this faculty development program. Thank you, ma'am, for joining here with all of us.